Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Caite and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language. I'm still in Iowa for just like a few more hours, so we're going to record one more update before I leave. So, Katie, how's it been having a house guest? How was your weekend?
I'm not just saying this because you're perched over my shoulder, right Arlene. It's been delightful to have you here. I had mentioned the other day that it feels less intrusive than many house guests do because you and I spend so much time looking at each other and talking anyway. So
I'm not really an intruder.
Not really. No. It's been good.
Yeah, we've been doing Midwest things. We went to a cave, which was cool, literally, and also neat to look at. I don't think I said that in our first update. No, because we did our update last week before we'd even done anything. I just landed. So, yeah, we went to a cave. We've seen some people, but not too many people, because we are both introverted enough that a lot of people will be too much. I've gotten to be part of the, what is it called? The Iowa State Barn Tour?
Yeah. The Iowa Barn Foundation annual tour.
Because Katie's barn is on the tour. So I have got to go on the tour a few times and hear some different stories about the history of the big barn in their yard. And we got photos taken. I mean, Katie and her family got photos taken too. I wasn't in on those, but Katie and I got some more pictures done together. We had a potluck.
We set some shit on fire.
Yes, in a fire pit, not just randomly.
There's been booze, there's been chocolate. Arlene brought Canadian snacks, so we're all very cultured and worldly now.
Ketchup, chips, and Smarties.
She was concerned about whether she had gotten the full, true peak Midwestern experience, so I told her that tonight we will be doing keg stands on ranch dressing.
But I've had tater tot casserole, and I don't know what else is Midwesty about our trip. We've seen lots of corn, lots of beans.
Lots of corn, lots of beans.
Yeah, lots of farms.
Huh?
Well, as we drive around, I get to hear about all the things about the neighbors, so that seems on point for what you do when you live in a small town or country roads.
Yep. We went up to the neighbors and visited our bull the other day. He's been over there doing his job with other ladies.
We didn't watch him do his job, just for reference.
No, he's very finished with that aspect of his work.
And I've been waiting to hear if I was going to be stuck somewhere in the U.S. because there was potentially going to be a Air Canada strike, but it looks like that's been averted. So I will actually be able to get home probably on schedule. I mean, you don't want to bet on that because, airplanes, but there's no strike anyway. So chances are I will get home and we'll both go back to normal life where we talk on screens instead of in person. Yeah, that's the thing we're going to do. All right, well, we will introduce our guest for this week. And for our Patreon people, you'll get to see us together in Katie's office. And for those of you who aren't on Patreon yet, maybe that's something you want to see. The two of us in one place. I don't know. Might be worth it for a small monthly donation to help support the show. And if anyone knows of anyone who wants to sponsor us, we're also interested in that. Anyway, here's our guest for this week.
Arlene, maybe we should post some outtakes from our photo shoot on Patreon.
Y'all
want to see some really hideous photos, you're going to have to sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah. It was very hot, it was very sweaty, and we're kind of awkward. So look forward to that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask Olivia to tell us where she is and to answer our usual first question, which is, what are you growing?
What are we growing? Okay, so we live in a 44-foot fifth wheel right now, so we can't grow a lot. I have tried to grow. We have this little window in the front that I thought I could grow like starts in or just herbs and things. I can't control the weather or the temperature enough in there. It either gets way too hot or way too cold. So all of those died. So then I brought them to another part on one of our bump outs. And then they all died there because they got flies. So my husband took over and they are outside in 5-gallon buckets. And we have a pepper plant, a tomato plant, a calendula plant, or calendula, I guess it depends on how you pronounce it. And then we have a bucket that has St. John's wort and bergamot, just for some fun herbs to have. So That's what we're growing right now. And this spring was hard. So that's why we made sure to get some plants, because this spring was the first spring in a long time that we haven't grown anything. And we were very, very cabin fevery.
I love that even though you're in a camper, that you're still willing to try and grow a few things. Are you also growing some kids?
Yes. So we have 2 small kids. We've got Lincoln is 4 and Sydney will be 2 next month. And they are fun and a handful all at once.
Yes, and growing for sure.
Very much so.
And Olivia, I know you mentioned having a dog in there too. What kind of dog do you have?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lab Great Pyrenees named Arizona.
So real tiny, like a compact camper dog.
Real, just like a little ankle biter in, our 200 square feet of home.
Say, when I think of ideal dogs for fifth wheel life, I don't know that a lab Great Pyrenees and 2 children under 5 is really where I would expect that to go.
It's not the craziest we've heard. We've made so many friends all on the road. And we met one family living in a RV, like the drivable kind. And it was probably 40 foot. And they had 5 children in there, all of them teenagers.
Wow.
And I was like, I got to ask, where do they sleep? Like, I'm just so curious now. Where do they sleep? Because it had no slide outs. I was like, what are you doing here? Maybe it had one slide out. And they said, honestly, I was going to build like this elaborate bunk bed system for them on the slide out. They just sleep on the floor and that's where they want to sleep. Like they get their mat and like they just chill out there on the floor and that's where they go. And I was like, oh, okay. As long as everybody's comfortable and that's where they want to be.
Hammocks for everybody.
I'm like, if that's where they want to be, I mean, that's fine. I was just so curious. But no, I do have to preface, like we live in a fifth wheel, but when you get in this thing, like it feels like we live in a single wide trailer. I mean, it's pretty big. We've got 5 slide outs. It's 44 foot long. We've got a loft above. I'm sitting in our master bedroom. There's a loft above it where the kids have their beds. The living room and the kitchen are separate. I mean, we have like a full living room space. I mean, it's for a camper, it's pretty darn big. So I do have to preface that.
But with I guess you guys are camping in one place for longer times, aren't you? So you're not like driving that much of a percentage of a time, right?
In a way, yeah. So we stay in a campground for 30 days and then we drive out to the farms from there. And then at the end of that 30 days, we go somewhere else. So it's not like we're driving every week, we're not constantly moving, but we're not really here for long term either. The long term people are here for like 6 to 8 months, usually at a campground. Those are like your long termers.
I guess I was just thinking about the one downside of a fifth wheel being that everyone has to be in the car together when you're moving, as opposed to an RV where you at least have a little more space to spread out while you're on the road. But if you're not on the road, all day, every day, then I guess it doesn't matter nearly as much.
Right.
So.
And that was something that we definitely contemplated, like RV versus fifth wheel because of that. But because the kids are so small, I don't think that we could really explain to them or that they would really understand that even though we're in the house, you have to be in your car seat. Because some of them have, like, you have to have ways to strap them down and they have to still be in a car seat. You can't just have them running around. And we thought that that would be a harder burden on them to really understand, like, yeah, I know we can just get up and go walk to the bathroom, but we can't because we're moving and we could be in an accident. It's hard to explain that to a 2, 3, and 4-year-old, So we went with this one.
I'm guessing too, because you're going to different farms, then it's easier to have just a smallish vehicle to go to those farms in and not have to pull in your, your big RV either.
Yeah. So we have a dually truck and that's what pulls the fifth wheel, but we only have the one vehicle. So we do take the truck with us. And, we've talked about it. It probably would have been a little bit better on us. Maybe we should have gone in an RV and gotten a small car that had better gas mileage. But I don't know. We've realized that no matter what decision you make in camper life, like in full-time RV life, you're giving up something somewhere. Like you can't have it all. You just can't. So that's what we do. We have our dually. We have a Dodge. It's very spacious. The kids and the dog fit very comfortably in the back. Paul's my husband, we sit comfortably in the front and then pull the camper behind us and and it works out well. And then it's nice too, because our 4-year-old is very bladder shy, and he's just now getting to the point where he's not so bladder shy, but it'd been nice that we could pack our lunch, we can get to our fridge in our camper while all the slides are in and we're still hooked up. So if we just pull to a rest stop, get lunch, go to the bathroom, stretch our legs a little bit, we don't have to go into a truck stop or a store or anything like that. We can just have like our personal space, and it feels a little bit easier on travel days too.
I bet that saves a shitload of money too when you're not taking your kids into places where there are things for sale. Because as my husband has noticed, a trip to the gas station costs twice as much with children, because it's, $50 of gasoline and $50 of snacks. So, I bet that would, and having to deal with taking kids into a bathroom in a public place. And
so we haven't actually explained to our listeners why it is that you're living on the road. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what?
They're on the run from the law, everybody. I'll just give it away.
Yeah, that's right. What decisions led you to being in this place?
Yeah, that's kind of funny. The people are probably listening like, you interview farmers. Why are you talking to somebody who's in a camper full time? So yeah, I can dive into the whole history if that's okay. Just go start to finish. So I'm a 6th generation cattle farmer. I grew up in East Central Indiana on a small 300-acre family farm. And I went to Purdue, graduated in animal sciences. When I met my husband, I was like, hey, farming's a non-negotiable. And at that time, my dad was starting his farm-to-table business, and they had a 5-acre garden on top of beef and poultry that they were raising. And I was like, come spend a summer with me at my family farm, see what it's all about. Because he didn't grow up farming. He baled hay a little bit, as a teenager, but like that was his extent of farming. And he was like, okay. And he came and stayed with us for the summer. My parents were very open to it, which I thought was a little weird, but I think that they knew that he was the one. So they were like a little more okay with it. And Paul just fell in love too. Well, with me and with farming, but with farming.
That's convenient. Both is good.
Yeah, it's convenient. Yeah. And he started doing some research. He's a big research guy. So he started diving in, and the farm, the whole family farm is mostly row crop, corn, soybean rotation. But then my grandpa had hog houses back in the day. Those had been torn down. My dad had cattle. I showed cattle in 4-H, and then they were doing the farm to table thing. So Paul was really digging in, and he was like, hey, I think that there might be an easier way for us to do this on a different scale. Why don't we look at some of these regenerative practices, the daily move practices, and just kind of see what that looks like. So we started doing it. We found our small farm in his hometown, which is about an hour west of my hometown. And we started raising cattle, moving them every day on pasture. Then we got into chickens, moving them every day on, or I guess we started with chickens, and then got into cattle. And then we ended up putting pigs on there too. And just on 5 small acres, 3.5, 4 of it was pasture. And it was going really well. We had a wonderful client base. We were going to the farmers market every Saturday. I was working at a bank there for a while. And then COVID brought me home full time, like a lot of farmers. And I also had Lincoln. He was born May of 2020. So he was right as things shut down. But I also got an amazing maternity leave from the bank. So I was able to have 100% pay for 12 weeks. 16 weeks. It was 16 weeks of 100% pay. And so right in the middle of the summer, it gave me a taste without worrying financially, can we do this full time? Can I be on the farm full time? And Paul was a firefighter paramedic. And I went back to work, and my boss was like, hey, we're going to get you set up for this assistant manager position. Let's do this. Let's get you ready. And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to go back to the farm. And she was like, what? I'm like, I don't want to be here. I really don't want to be here anymore. So that put me on the farm full time. We were there for a few more years. And then Sydney, she was not exactly planned. And I ended up being on modified bed rest at 22 weeks. And that summer was just really, really hard. That was the summer of 2022. And it was the hottest summer on record. Paul ended up with heat stroke. I couldn't do anything to help. And it just, it was weighing a lot. So we had talked for a couple years. Oh, we'd love to move down south. We love the mountains. Let's move. We're surrounded by corn and soybeans. We don't have any trees, any any shade whatsoever, shelter. Nobody will sell to us. We tried to find farm and farm and farm. Nobody was selling. And we were like, maybe this is our sign to get out. I don't think farming is fun anymore. And just on a spur of the moment in the winter, we went to the RV show in Indianapolis for something to do, get the kids out of the house. And we walked out of the RV show and we were like, hey, we're going to sell the house or sell the farm and live in a camper. I don't know what we're going to do next, but that's what we're going to do. And I will preface this too by saying that right before that, I'd had this weird gut feeling that I was like, I think we're going to go through a really big change. So I was talking to Paul like, hey, I have this feeling we're going through something really big, really dramatic. I don't know what it is. I don't think anybody's dying, but something big is going to happen. And I want us to be prepared to just take it on. And I think that was my gut check saying, like, I don't think you're supposed to be farming right now anymore. So we ended up selling the farm February of 23. And we tried to buy a couple properties in North Carolina, and those fell through. And we were staying at a friend's farm in a camper for that time. And we were like, what do we really want to do? And we'd had our YouTube channel for our farm, just like sharing our journey, what we're doing with, our animals and customers and things. And we didn't really want to give up YouTube. We really love storytelling. We think that sharing our story, the small farmer story, and just agriculture in general is so important. And we also wanted to go travel. And growing up in the middle of a cornfield, I didn't get to travel as a kid. I mean, cattle shows, but that was it. And we definitely didn't go explore because usually those shows are in a not so nice part of town. So we weren't going anywhere outside of those fairgrounds. And we were like, yeah, let's go travel. Let's see if we can do it. So we did a couple test runs. We went to Michigan. We went to Southern Indiana, did a couple farm tours, and we set out wanting to share the small farmer story. Like we'd already kind of felt like since COVID, people had just went right back to buying from the grocery store. They stopped buying from their local farmer or small farmer. And that the story of the small farmer is not told often enough. And the farmer's already doing so many things. They're farming and then they're trying to market their product. And they don't have time to sit there and sell themselves to every single person and make videos about what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's one more thing that most farmers don't like to talk about themselves like that. So they just, that's not what they do. And we were like, this is so important. And we see that this is a need. So let's do it. And we did a couple tours and they did really well on views. And we were like, hey, I think we can make this work. So we took our savings from selling the farm and Paul quit his job as a firefighter paramedic and we hit the road. And we kind of went on a budget and we were like, hey, this is, how much money we have. This is how much we can spend. And the goal is for YouTube monetization to really take over and be able to pay our bills going forward. So we started officially in December of 23. We went to Mississippi and then we went to North Florida, North Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Connecticut. Now we're in New York and we're going to Vermont next.
That is amazing.
So
I love that you have taken this risk and are doing the thing and not just talking about doing the thing. And I'm also super jealous because Katie and I often talk about the fact that the best part about having a podcast is meeting people and being able to talk to them. And you actually get to do it like in real life. I mean, doing it online is pretty cool too. We still get to talk to people, but actually going to people's farms and getting farm tours sounds incredible. So how are you finding the people that you want to talk to, and how have your experiences been so far in terms of having those conversations and asking people if you can, just show up and tour their farm?
So we use a couple different websites. Regenerative Farmers of America has a map. So we look at that. American Pasture Poultry Producers Association. There's a third P in there. I always know it's called APA, but I'm like, what's the third P? So at the APA website, they have a map. There's a website called Eat Wild. They have a map. We go to farmers markets and look at their vendor list. And then sometimes we just Google too. And Paul put out a Facebook a couple of months ago and let me restart that one. Paul put out a Facebook post a couple of months ago and it got a lot of attention. And so we've got a lot of farms from there. So we try to stay more towards the small farmer, direct to consumer, regenerative, organic. That's not a requirement, but that tends to be like the world of the small farmer, if that makes sense. But, our belief is that everybody deserves a seat at the table. So we've been to all kinds of different farms. We've been to backyard gardens. We've been to city community gardens, municipal farms. That was really cool, where the city owns the land and the guy is farming it. We went to a U-pick strawberry field yesterday, and she's using towers. So that was really cool to see. We've been to Will Harris, where he's got, 5,000 acres of just animals, and then everybody in between. And it has been so cool to meet so many people, like you said, to be able to go to them and see them. And my process tends to be that I just give them a call and I'm like, hey, I'm working on this project. My husband and I were traveling the country, visiting small farms and sharing their story. Would you be open for a farm tour? And I'll say that we've got a 50-50 success rate from the people that I call, and then the people that say yes. Some people say, we're too busy, or I'm not interested in that. A lot of people don't answer, which is fine. I get that. I try not to be too pushy. Working in a bank for quite a few years, sales was a big thing. So it's probably where I get a lot of the ability to be able to just cold call somebody, but I'm not going to be pushy. I'm not trying to sell someone a credit card that they don't need. I call them twice. If they don't answer, that's that. But if I really, really want to get to them, then I'll throw them an email. And if they still don't respond, well, that's okay. Then I move on. But we have been to, I wrote it down because I was curious. As of today, we have been to 86 farms.
Since December.
Since basically a little bit before December, since we went to Michigan. But that was 5 farms, So since basically December, we've seen 86 farms and farmers and homesteads and growers, just in general. So yeah, it's been really cool. Oh yeah, we've also seen some maple syrup farms and some honeybees, and I think that's everybody that we've seen. All the different. Oh, mushrooms too. Mushrooms has been a different one too that we've seen. That's been really cool.
Well, I think if we get you on the Jim Palmer and Hugh Hunter database, we could probably introduce you to pretty much everybody in North America between our 2 husbands, I think. My husband is also lifelong in sales, and I don't know that we've ever gone on vacation and not run into someone he knows, halfway across the country. It's a whole thing.
Podcasts are free to listen to, but they aren't free to create. Katie and I would appreciate your support as we work to build the Barnyard Language community.
Patreon is an easy way for you to make a contribution that goes directly to making the show. As a member of our Patreon community, you get to watch the video version of our weekly updates, complete with questionable hairstyles and clutter. With 3 levels of support, you can choose a tier that works for you.
Keep the podcast going by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/Barnyard Language.
So, as someone who went on a road trip with my 6 and 7-year-olds a few weeks ago for 4 days, I don't know. And I think it was right around the same time that we booked with you, maybe. I realized this morning that I feel about traveling with children the same way I feel about high heels, that they're good in theory. Maybe they're fine for other people, but they're not great for me in practice right now. My 6-year-old was asking if we were there yet on a 5-hour trip before we were to the end of our road. You could still clearly see our house. So I'm wondering, maybe it helps that your kids are younger, but what tips do you have for traveling with little ones and hopefully not putting them in 5-gallon buckets or leaving them at a rest stop, or intentionally leaving them at a rest stop? Lots of earplugs, Xanax.
We are in the part of parenthood where we said we weren't going to be certain types of parents, and now we kind of are. So we don't have much of a structure system in general. iPads are a wonderful thing on a 6 and 8 hour car ride. Okay. Also, Paul and I remind ourselves often we are in no hurry. And we just sit back. Look, if we have to take 5 rest stops in a 3-hour drive, then so be it. Because at least everyone has their sanity. If Lincoln said he didn't have to pee 2 minutes ago and now he does, well, okay, we're stopping to go pee. And we just try to keep that like chilled and relaxed approach that like we are not in a hurry. And I know it's easier for us because we do like this is our life, right? Like we just travel. And not only do we have travel days with our camper, but we will drive an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. We went to Buffalo, so that was 3 hours from us last week. And they're still in the car often, right? Like we still go to farm tours. So we just remind ourselves like if we're 10, 15 minutes late to a farm tour, sometimes that happens. We try to leave early to anticipate those things. And then on big travel days, we just remind ourselves we are not in any hurry. And we still do things that we are completely unprepared for. We went to, where did we go? I think we found a little watering hole down the road. Every time we drove by it, there were cars there and people swimming. And I was like, hey, we need to go check that out because that looks like fun. So we went there and we barely had our bathing suits and towels, but we didn't bring like buckets or nets to catch crawdads and like minnows. Like, why didn't we do that? We didn't have any extra toys for them. We had a ball and we threw it and it was fun. But we still do things where we're completely unprepared. Sometimes we forget snacks and the kids are like, I'm hungry. I'm like, well, shit. Okay, let's figure something out. Or you'll just have to starve for 5 minutes. Like, so we just try to be like, I don't know, just really chill about it. I know that when we started, we were very regimented about what we were doing. Things have to be this way. And I think this might be a precursor to one of the questions you sent me, but we were like that in farming too. Like things have to be this way. And this whole journey has shown us that like, no, things can very easily just be, a flow up and down. Up and down is okay. It doesn't have to be a skyrocket up in the air. It doesn't have to be flatlined either. But just, I don't know. Sometimes it's just easy to take a deep breath. And it helps that Lincoln really likes Caillou, and they talk often about taking a deep breath when you're overwhelmed. So now he's been telling us to take a deep breath when we're overwhelmed, and it works. So
as annoying as Caillou can be, he does have a few redeeming qualities for sure.
Yes, he does.
So how do you incorporate your kids into your farm tour days when I know it's not all about creating content, but to a certain extent, you're trying to, interview people and create videos of their farm and things like that. So how do you work them into those types of travel days?
Yeah. So Paul and the kids go with me to the farm tours. I'm the voice. And we drive to the farm tour together, but Paul and the kids hang out either in the truck or sometimes at a farm they can go on a nature walk. Maybe they can go down to the creek or just walk down the driveway or something, or do like some homeschool type activities on their iPads together or whatever it may be. But they stay off and away from the camera. And that's for a couple reasons. One, we're not too keen on having them out in the light of the wonderful social media world right now. A lot of the big like homesteader YouTubers have had like some really weird stories of people. Well, shoot, even we did when we were farming and had our YouTube channel. We had like someone that had our same last name show up, and they turned out to be very nice and wonderful people, but it was a little creepy at first that like these people are just driving through Indiana and they want to stop and take a picture of our house. Like that's just weird. So we get a little defensive, and protective of the kids. So they do stay off camera, and it makes for an easier interview. I'm not trying to be interrupted 15 times while I'm trying to have a conversation with an adult about, their business model or whatever it is. So they do stay off, but we try to, if we're gone a long ways, we try to find some place, a park or a library to go in that town or near that town to just kind of give us a break, right? Like just let us, have our legs stretched and whatever. Sometimes we do just show up, turn around and come back. And then we've got the rest of the day to play outside or go to the park or the library. A lot of the campgrounds that we've been to have, park equipment, slides, swings and stuff. This one's got a pool, so like that's nice. The last one had a pond. We went fishing a lot. So we try to just keep it really, I don't know, relaxed and not that big of a deal. Like, I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was just wondering like you said, the logistics of a 4 and 2-year-old being like, "Hey mom, hey mom," while you're trying to talk to someone about regenerative agriculture is a little bit hard to get the footage that you're looking for.
Sorry, even podcasting from our own homes with older children, sometimes trying to get anything done when they're home and there's somebody walking in going, "I need a snack. So and so looked at me," like, or Arlene's kids just using up all of the internet in Eastern Canada between the 4 of them.
Yeah, well, I'm just stay quiet for the next hour and a half.
Don't bleed on anything.
Yeah, that's right.
We have hard days too, right? Like today, for instance, preparing for talking with you guys. Lincoln said, "I don't want to go. I want to stay home with you." And I'm like, "Well, buddy, if you have to go potty or you need a snack or something, I can't help you because I'm on a phone call. So like you need to go with daddy." And Paul was trying to go do laundry and go to the park and just hang out with the kids, kind of away from here. And he was like, I don't want to go. I want to stay home. So there are hard times where like the sweet, adorable, loving little 4-year-old is like, I just want to stay home in my underwear all day. And you're like, I feel you, bro.
Same, buddy, same.
Yeah. I feel you, bro. I feel you. But we can't do that. But when we're done, if you want to sit in the living room in your underwear and we watch TV the rest of the day, you know what? That's okay. We can do that. That's fine. But for right now, we have to do this. So he kind of left kicking and screaming. And those things are hard. And he's becoming more of a homebody too, where like I'll wake him up in the morning and be like, okay, we got to go to a farm tour. And he's like, I don't want to go to a farm tour. Well, that's how we're trying to make money right now. So, and Paul and I tease too of like, well, at least you're not going to a prison. Like, you're not going to a preschool or whatever. We say prison, we're just teasing. But he doesn't understand that, right? Like, he just knows his life. And so there are hard days for sure. Sydney's a little bit more chill, but she also has just recently stopped hating her car seat. So there's that. She was a screamer in her car seat. So yeah, there's hard days.
Definitely.
We're like so far off our normal list of questions here. Good. More chaos. I love it. What have some of the coolest things been, when you're talking about being so regimented? I feel like consistently the best parts of road trips for us have been the things we didn't expect to see, or it's never the site that's on your list. It's some like, my husband and I drove to Memphis for our honeymoon, and on the way back stopped at a place in Mississippi that served something called a slug burger, which apparently involves soybeans and not slugs, but like, talk about things indelibly burned into your brain, the slug burger. So I'm wondering what the best weird random things have been that you guys have stumbled across in your travels.
Yeah. So here, the swimming hole has been the coolest part. I think it's on, I don't know what trail it is, but I want to say it's got to be close to the AT, the Appalachian Trail. So it might be a branch off the AT, but I mean, there's a lot of through hikers through there. So like while we were there, a guy by himself, he didn't have a big pack. He stopped, took a bath, and then went on his way. And it's not like he was like, I don't think he was necessarily homeless. I just think he was on a big hike. So that swimming hole, that's been really cool. And literally, we just drove by it. So we're staying south of Syracuse, and on our way to Ithaca, every single time we drive by it, I'm like, there's a car there every single time. And then I see people playing in the water. Like, this has got to be a good spot. So that a place like that's been cool. We're suckers for ice cream, and it always happens that we find the best ice cream place right before we leave. So we went to, when we were in Connecticut, it was right down the road was ice cream. And they also made it like a mini farm kind of petting zoo-ish. It was just goats. But you could tell they'd already had the farm, and they just put a fence up and what are those little like sheds, like the backyard sheds. And their ice cream list was like an encyclopedia. Like they had so many different kinds of ice creams, and tornadoes is what they called it. And you could just there were nor'easters in there. Like it was crazy, and it was really good. I'm not a fan of soft serve, but what they did to it was amazing. So finding little ice cream spots. The funnest places have definitely been things that aren't on the list that you just kind of like accidentally find. And we hate that we find them at the end, but they're not listed anywhere. Like we try to do some research, like fun places to go with kids, and it's all like, I don't know, like a walking trail or putt-putt, or like the museums and stuff have been cool. When we were in North Carolina, we went to the Greensboro Children's Science Center, I think is what it's called. That place is awesome, but it's also not exactly very cheap, and we're kind of on a budget. So being able to find things that we can do for free that are fun, we try to get out and explore and ask the local libraries. We try to make sure we always go to the library and, at least just play. Some of them will let us get a library card and some of them won't. We're 2 for 4 right now. So, which we're only staying in a place for 30 days, so I don't push on it. But I know the people that stay for like 6 to 8 months, they're like, hey, we really want to be a part of your library. Please let us do it, even if it's a temporary card. I'm trying to think of some other places that we've seen that were different. I will say, like, North Central Florida was rough for us. It was beautiful, and we finally found a hiking spot like the week before we left that was amazing and beautiful, and they had little swimming holes and a cave that you could dive down in if you were certified. But we tried to go to the beach, and it was not a beach. It was like a swamp. It was interesting. I mean, it was still the ocean, but it was like, it was not. It was just not. So yeah, we try to find those kinds of places. Sometimes it's a miss, but then sometimes it's not.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to find, right? So you kind of already alluded to this, but what are some of the things that you and your husband are learning about agriculture that you didn't know before, that you're kind of incorporating into your vision of what maybe you would like to do when it comes to farming in the future?
Yeah. So being a 6th generation farmer, and that's just the way we've always done things kind of mentality. And then Paul shows up and he's like, well, this is how they've done things. This is what I'm seeing on the internet or whatever. This is just how it is. And then we farmed for 6 years. So we thought that we had it all figured out. We were like, oh yeah, we know how to do this farming thing. It's not that hard. We've got it down. And the things that we are learning, like, holy crap, we know nothing. We know absolutely nothing. I mean, things just that are so simple. So, like, when people talk about moving their animals every day, we met with a farmer it was in Florida. His name's Jesse. He's amazing. And he was like 86 years old when we were there. And he said, I always come out into the pasture right when the sun's right. It's like the sun's just rising and you can see the dew and you can see the spider webs on the pasture. And if you can see the spider webs, then it's time to move your cattle. And I just loved how poetic that was. And what he's saying is that the pasture needs to recover long enough before you can move your cows back onto it if you're rotationally grazing. And if the grass is tall enough that the spiders can put a web in it, then it's okay for you to move your cattle in. And I just loved how poetic that was. And he talked about just like sitting there and watching, like just watching the grass grow and what the cows chose to eat and what they chose not to eat. And that a lot of people, myself included, think about doing farm chores as just, okay, walk out there, move the fence, feed them, go back. We got to get feed ordered. We got to order chicks. We got to, then eat lunch and then get the kids taken care of. And things are very like step A, B, C. And we don't think about sitting in the pasture as part of our actual like chores. We think that that's, well, you're being lazy, you're wandering, you're not paying it, you're not doing the work. Well, if you sit there and watch, just watch what they do, you actually will learn a heck of a lot. So that was really, really cool. And then another farmer that I met with, he's in Rhode Island, but when we were staying in Connecticut, the way that he is farming is absolutely, I mean, my jaw was dropped the whole time we were talking. And coming from a conventional farming background, I went to Purdue, I got all of the science, and then even seeing some of the like regenerative approaches that we used and worked, and we use them in, with my conventional knowledge, and science is science and nature, it all came together. He just took that and like threw a bomb at it and was like, you know what? I don't think any of that's right. So what he's doing is, specifically with his pigs, he has his sows, and they're gilts. They haven't pigged before. So he's got the gilts, and they pig, and then they wean. And once they weaned, those females go to slaughter. And then the pigs, in a few more months, go to slaughter. And he holds a couple of females back. He breeds them. They farrow, they wean, and they go to slaughter. And that was his way of working around their harsh winters and snow load, in that he doesn't have to worry about having pigs in the middle of a snowstorm and caring for, these huge sows for years and years. And they can still be a valuable production model. Like the meat is still delicious. He said it, just because they farrow doesn't mean that they're all sausage now. They have a beautiful, loin eye, and their pork chops are awesome. And that's how he works through his pig's genetics. And I was like, holy crap. Nobody ever thinks of breaking that production model down like that. We're always focused on making the most, as much as we can, for as long as we can. And we don't, well, just because pigs can have 2.5 litters a year doesn't mean that they have to, doesn't mean that your farm has to do that. So it's just those out of the box ideas that we're finding. We're like, wow, there are so many different ways that people can farm and that people can raise animals and grow things. And it just holds true to our thought that, everyone deserves a seat at the table. It doesn't matter how you're growing or what you're growing. We're all just out here trying to feed our community and our families. And we all love growing and raising things. So you might as well have the people that love doing it do it. And it's just things like that we're like, holy cannoli. So we are definitely taking a lot of that with us. Even a guy we saw here in New York, it was last week. Yeah, it was this past week. He, when they bought their farm, they didn't realize that you can't dig a well. Like, you could dig a well for hundreds and hundreds of feet and you won't find any water. So then they thought that maybe the city would bring water to them. Nope, city's not going to do it. So this whole area of farmland, they don't have any water. The way that they get water is you have to go to the fire station and buy it and haul it back. And that these huge dairy farms over here have these, ginormous tanks, like I think of like the fire truck grass rig tanks. And that's how they have their water for the day or maybe the week, depending on how many cows they have. And he's like, we're just a small farm and we just started their first generation. And he's like, we've got like 10 and 20 gallon totes and we're making like 10 trips a day. Like, after you pay for the fuel, and if you can't do it, you pay someone else to go do it. I mean, you're looking at a lot of money every day to do that. So what he did is he put tile lines in, threw them to a pond, pumps the water out of the pond, and that water goes to the rest of the farm. I mean, it was just so ingenious. And he worked with the Soil and Water Conservation to do that. And I think even some NRCS, and actually helped get a grant for it. And now those agencies are bringing people out to them to say, hey, if you can't get water, try this. Let's see how this model might work for you. So it kind of became like a starting point for people who might also be in a similar situation. So yeah, mind-boggling. And some of the things that we're finding is just so cool.
Well, I think too, being willing to let go of that, this is how things have always been done, can improve quality of life for humans so much. I know we have a local farm that buys piglets in the spring, feeds them out on pasture all summer, butchers them, sells the meat, takes the winter off, does not raise hogs all winter in southern Minnesota. They went to Portugal for like 3 months last year before. And some part of me is still like, you can't just go to Portugal, despite the fact that you've farmed all summer. You can. There's no law. No one has come to take their farm away and be like, nah, you lost your farmer license. But when you're multi-generation, on the same farm and you've always done it the same way. Like, I can picture what would happen if I told my in-laws that I was going to Portugal for 3 months. I mean, they're lovely people, but it would not work with the way we run things. And it's cool to see how other people do stuff, because it's so easy to get stuck in, well, this is how we've always done it.
Mm-hmm. And I think that some of that too, we get caught up in the way that it's always been. But if other people who have always done it that way, if they can also be a little open-minded and be like, hey, actually, you don't have to sweat your ass off the entire year, every single day, 365, where you're burnt out. And when you turn 70 years old, you are hoping and praying that your kids take it over. And maybe they don't want to because they saw you sweating your ass off 365. Then what happens? Why were you busting your ass? And now your family doesn't even want it anymore. Like, Paul and I have this conversation often about the generational timeline that, well, I'm doing this for my kids. Well, what if your kids don't want it? Don't make yourself miserable because you think you're building something for your kids that your kids might not actually ever want to be a part of. And I think Will Harris said it the best, that when he stopped that mindset of working his ass off all of the time for barely any return, and he started doing things that he actually was passionate about, he said, I love cattle, and as long as I'm alive, we're going to have cattle on this farm. But you know what? If my grandchildren have this farm and they don't want cows, that's okay. That's on them. They don't have to have cows. But when he transferred his mindset to that, then two of his daughters were like, hey, Dad, I think I want to be a part of that. That's really cool what you're doing. It seems like it's very energizing. And we also are making room for family time. Like, we're getting off. Jordan Green did that too. He's in Virginia. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but at one point he had a huge sow operation. And he's, I mean like 500 sows on pasture. And he's backed that off. Now he's got 90 sows because he's like, look, I want to spend time with my family. I want to go on vacation. I want to go explore. I want to be able to know who my children are and not just make them come out in the field and work with me all the time. He's like, we were moving pigs 3 times a week and it's exhausting. Now we move them once a week and it's a little bit more relaxed. And I think that if we've got the first generation farmers coming in with already a little bit of that mindset, but if then some of the older generation farmers can also catch on to a little bit of that and be like, hey, if you work for 9 months, you get 3 months in Portugal. Like, let's see how that works. And then breaking that stigma down that, like, there's something wrong with that. And that's something I talk about a lot too, that just because you pivot or change something doesn't mean you failed. You didn't do anything wrong. You just changed. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is about changing. I had this weird thought, and this may be like a little existential, but I was talking to this woman the other day, and she is older than, I mean, I'm 29. I always forget how old I am. I'm going to be 27 forever is what I tell everybody. So I just think of 27, but I'm like, wait, I'm not actually 27. So she's like in her 60s, and she's like so vibrant and alive in what she's doing. And I'm like, here I am, 27, thinking that this is all I could do in my life. Like, no, I know this isn't all I can do. I can do so many different things. My mom, she was a PTA. She was a physical therapist assistant for years. I mean, like 20 years. And then she's like, you know what? I like Farm Bureau. There's a position open. I think I'm going to apply to be a Farm Bureau, a district manager. What? Like, those two things don't even try to talk to each other. And she's doing great at her new job. Like, I just wish more people were okay with the fact that just because you change, it doesn't mean you failed. And we got a lot of criticism when we sold our farm that, oh, we're failures. Like, why did you sell out? Oh, we even had somebody comment on our video, farmers don't sell their land. Farmers don't sell out. Well, actually, sometimes they do, and that's okay. There's no stigma on that.
Lots of them do. Yeah. And for lots of reasons.
You're only allowed to quit if you die, Olivia. It brings that whole, like, but did you die? No, then you're a quitter.
Sorry, that's not funny, but it is kind of funny. I mean, it's ironic, I guess.
Less and less, I think, because a lot of those people have actually died.
Yeah.
I feel like we see less of it, but also we see fewer farmers because nobody came back. They sent their kids to college and their kids went, okay, see ya, bye, and they bailed out as fast as they could. And I don't blame them at all. It's not, if you're going to go home to do things the same way it's been done for the last 100 years and you're not going to get any say or any choice, why would you go back to that? That's doesn't sound awesome to me.
I do feel like there is that people feel this obligation to their ancestors, but not necessarily to their descendants. And I've seen a quote, that alludes to that sometimes. And I feel that that is so misplaced in terms of your obligation, right? Because our ancestors, I mean, as much as we say, oh, we're doing things the same way, we're not. 100 years ago, our ancestors wouldn't recognize the types of farms and the methods that we're using today. And that's okay. If they had the technology that we have, they would want to be using it, right? Like, we don't have to, break through the ice in the wintertime anymore to water cattle, or, we don't have to, run, fires in our houses to keep us warm. We're doing different things than we used to. And so we have to, every generation has to adapt. So telling our kids that, this is the standard now, like, we're not going to change from this point on, doesn't serve anybody. So yeah, that feeling like you have to do it the way the previous generations does it. It doesn't honor them or you, because it's actually just stagnating you.
It's funny, Arlene, too, because for as much as I hear about, well, this is how my great grandparents did it, people sure got rid of those outhouses and workhorses pretty fast. I don't see anybody putting in an outhouse because that's how great grandpa did it. But they'll hold on to it for other stuff.
Sure, maybe our Mennonite and Amish neighbors might be doing things the same way as 100 years ago, but most of the rest of us have moved on. I know my husband tells this story of I think it was his great-grandfather was convinced that when they got the first tractor, that anywhere that tractor drove would never produce again, because, it was just going to destroy the soil. And it's not true. And so, times have changed, and he was wrong, and that's okay. But we don't still have horses running equipment here, even though that was the way it was done generations ago. So yeah, it's time to move on.
Now, I don't want to say either that there's not a place for some of those things. Like, some people are putting, composting toilets back into their homes. And I have been on the fanciest composting toilet on the market. I will say the thing's pretty damn cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie. But it also comes with technology that was not a bucket. It wasn't a hole in the ground and you just, threw some rocks on it. And so there is, I think, some place for some things, but I think that idea of failure, if we're going to change, we have failed. That's where I kind of get a little, wishy-washy. And I'm like, I don't think that there's failure in that. I think that there's just, we call it tuition in our house, right? You pay for tuition one way or another. You pay for it monetarily, or you pay for it in sweat. Like, that's kind of where we put it.
Yeah. So do you have a sense at this point, I mean, you're on this traveling journey, but is your hope or your thought at this point that you will farm again someday? And do you have an idea at this point about when that might be or where that might be yet? Or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, so we definitely will have a place of growing and raising things. I don't know if we'll call it a farmstead, mainly because of the sales part. I don't know if we're going to do direct to consumer again. I'm not one to take anything off of the table, though. So, I mean, maybe, never say never. But our focus right now is to do more homestead type. And I want to preface that by saying there's a difference in, like, being a prepper and homesteading. I'm not saying we're going to go 100% off grid and raise and do everything ourselves. But I mean, do I want a milk cow? Hell yes, I want my own milk cow. We drank raw milk for years before we came on the road, and the fact that it's so hard to find it while on the road makes my soul hurt. So we will definitely have a milk cow. We'll probably have a nice sized garden and some pigs. Katie, did you want to say something?
If you can get a Great Pyrenees in that camper, you can get a goat in that camper. I'm just saying. Sorry, Olivia's husband. I'm going there.
I went to a farmer's market And I told this guy what I was doing. I was like, look, I'm trying to get plants. This is like when I was trying to get herbs and stuff. And he's like, you gonna get a cow up on the roof next? And I was like, hey, you know what? And Paul really wants a toy hauler next. And I'm like, look, if we've got the toy hauler part, that can just be our barn. And we can have a cow or a goat in there. You'll be fine.
Yeah, a nice dairy sheep.
I'm just imagining when you roll up to like a state park campground and like put out the slide outs and then drop the tailgate on that toy hauler and just like, you know, your whole fence will just be on wheels. It'll just wheel right out, pop out. Like, yeah, it'll be motorized just like the pop outs are, you know, and then like, and out'll come your sheep and your goats and
Yeah,
like
a handful of chickens.
a yak or a camel or something.
Yeah, a few chickens will come out. People will be like, what the heck is that noise? Oh, those people have livestock. Well, hey, if we get onto a property and we still are in our camper, it's going to be pretty darn close to that. They might not live in our camper, but so our plan then, so we're in this weird in between right now. So this is the middle of July. We've been on the road for what, 8 months now, and our savings is starting to deplete. And YouTube monetization is paying about half of our bills right now. So we're in this weird spot where we're like, okay, can we make it a little tighter and go a few more months? What's it going to look like in December? Will YouTube be paying, you know, all of our bills? Our goal is to hit every single state. We want to see at least a farm in every single continental state. And if we can do that, that's great. So we did the math and it'd be about another year and a half, 2 years on the road. That would be amazing. But just like with the farm, we're going to go when we're called. And at some point we are going to be called to go settle back down again. So we're looking to have, you know, a small homestead. But we don't know exactly what that would look like because it would, of course, depend on our financial situation. So the plans are in there. We will have animals and plants again one day in some capacity. But we're just kind of up for the ride right now. And we try really hard to be present and in the moment too. It kind of goes back to your first question, Katie, about like the kids, that we can sit here and worry about the future all day and be super stressed out. I mean, we have days where we're consumed with anxiety and we're like, oh my gosh, did we make a terrible decision? Why are we doing this? Was this horrible? We're going to fail, you know, back to that failure conversation. And we just have to have a conversation with each other and say, let's just focus in the moment. We know that we can make it to, you know, this date. We're going to go back to Indiana in September. And that's kind of like our figure out period. So we know that we're going to make it to September. So let's just enjoy what we're doing today. And that's kind of goes back to the whole reason why we did this. Paul, as a firefighter paramedic, they called him the black ops medic and a black cloud because he saw the worst of the worst compared to everyone else on the job with him. I don't know what it was about him, but he saw some really, really traumatic things. And he was like, you know, everybody waits to retirement to go travel the country. I might not make it to retirement. Or a lot of the guys, especially in the fire service, get to retirement and 2 months later are dead. Like, you don't know what tomorrow brings. So if we just like try to stay present, you know, we have a goal and an idea. I don't know how we are going to execute it, but we always say we'll make it work because we always do. There was a time when I left the bank. Paul left a really good job because he wanted to become a firefighter paramedic. And we had barely any money and we still made our truck payment and the farm payment. I don't know how we did that, but we did. Like looking back, I'm like, I don't know how we like fed ourselves, but we made it work and we always do. So we just try to stay, you know, present.
Well, if nothing else, you could start offering farm sitting for those of us who do have longer term livestock, but would also like to go to Portugal for like a week, maybe, you know, it just.
Yeah, 3 months might not be achievable, but yeah, a week or two.
A couple weeks, why not?
We have thought about that. It makes me a little nervous because shit always hits the fan when the farmer goes away.
Yeah, and you're married to Black Ops guy, so
That's true. I don't know if I want Black Cloud, Black Ops guy. What? Sorry, Paul. Just saying.
We are now. That's just with medic stuff, right?
Okay.
sure. Yeah. I'm sure with farm animals, he'd be great.
Yeah. He was fine with the farm animals. It was when he was gone from the farm. Shit always happened when he was gone. The cows got out when I was like 6 months pregnant, and I'm chasing them down the road. We had pigs on leased land, and we chased them for 2 whole freaking days before we found those damn pigs. And one of them didn't make it home because he wouldn't get on the trailer. Like, shit always happens when Paul's gone too. So maybe if Paul's on the farm, it's okay. Things will be fine. We are going to test this theory out. We are friends with a bigger YouTuber. He's in Vermont, and him and his wife have really been wanting to go on an actual vacation for a while. And so I was like, hey, well, we want to come up and see you. And he's like, oh, if you could farm for us, that would be great. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to try it out. And that option is there. I'm still a little nervous though. Like, I don't think we're going to do any farm tours while we're farm sitting for him, at least unless they're really, really close to him. Like if they're like less than 30 minutes away, then we'll go. But I'm not driving, I'm not going to be on the road all day and have somebody call and be like, hey, so-and-so's cows are out. Oh, crap.
Yeah, the added pressure of someone else's livestock is just a little bit different than your own, right?
Is that how you get your kids back in the truck now, though? Is you just tell them about that hog that wouldn't get back on the trailer? Because I assume I know how that story ended.
No, actually, we haven't dropped it, but that's a good one.
Maybe wait till they're a little older, so they can remember it for therapy later.
Right.
So I know you said that your RV or your fifth wheel is fairly spacious, but I'm assuming that there was some downsizing of things when you actually made the move and went on the road. Are there things in terms of like physical stuff that you miss or things that you don't miss that you had to get rid of or put in storage or whatever you did with the stuff?
Yeah, all of Paul's tools are sitting in our friend's barn right now. He refused to part with any of them. So even the broken bandsaw. He's like, it's a perfectly good bandsaw.
He can fix it.
Yeah, it just needs fixed. Like, it's perfectly fine. So there was quite a bit of downsizing, but we already lived like mostly minimalist anyway. So we didn't have too many personal things to get rid of. It was all of the farm stuff. I mean, we had so many things. Now we did take all of our freezers with us. So we've got like 4 chest freezers that we took, and we brought one of them on our camper with us. It's one of those tiny ones.
I was going to say not all 5 are in the camper.
No. Sorry.
I thought she meant all 5 of them were in the camper.
We only eat our own meat for the next 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
She did bring the whole farm. It's just all in the freezers.
No, the other freezers, the big freezers, are at my friend's property. But we did bring one little one with us because we did have a lot of meat left over. So we're thankful for that. We are starting to run out though. And for the first time in 7 years, we're like, holy crap. Where are we going to get our meat from?
At least you go to lots of farms, so you've got options.
Yes, we do have tons of options. So there is that. Clothes, I guess, were probably the biggest personal item we had to get rid of. And we didn't even have that many clothes, but we don't have a lot of storage for clothes. We've got a small closet that Paul and I put our shirts and pants in. The kids each get 1 drawer, but as they're getting older, I'm getting a little concerned about that 1 drawer, and they might have to have 2 drawers. We have another, like a little coat closet, and then under our bed has tons of storage. So we utilize the vacuum seal bags. That works really well, especially with the kids. So we've been very fortunate, grateful, and very blessed that we've had a lot of friends and family that have given us a lot of kids' clothes. So we haven't really had to buy any kids' clothes, but that also meant I was keeping them in storage in our basement at the farm. And now I'm like, well, I don't know how long we're going to be on the road. We need to bring all of their extra clothes with us because these little kids grow like crazy. So that's been hard. Otherwise, we've typically cooked just on a cast iron skillet. We do have an air fryer. That thing is my godsend. And really, I don't think we have too many other storage items. The kids' toys are pretty minimal. We do have like an outside toy bin for them too. So I can't say that like our personal items were too much, but the farm stuff, I mean, deciding what to keep and what to get rid of, like our livestock trailer, we didn't want that just sitting at our friend's property and she wasn't going to use it. So we sold it. We had a little farmer's market trailer. She is using that, so that's nice at least that she can take care of that. I'm trying to think of what else. That was really it. We didn't have too much else. I mean, like we had a big barn sale before we left the farm. But it was just, things you get with a farm. Like we inherited a lot of things from the farm, and I tried not to leave too many things, but probably I don't know if I should say this in public. It's fine. One of our biggest regrets is not vetting the people that bought our property. They were nice people. They're great. But I wish that we would have sold it to somebody who was going to use it as a farm. And we were just so ready to get out and to just have it done. They were like, I don't know, it was like $5,000 under asking price. Everything was, in line and ready to go. He was pre-qualified, and it like we were 30 days to close and it was done. So that was easy, but the pasture management, it wasn't really taken care of the first couple of years. They didn't know what to do with it. They're from New York City, and he worked for like Boeing or something. So yeah, I guess that was hard. I tried to leave him a few things, but after talking with him a little bit, be like, yeah, here's like some step-in posts, and we left some of the poly wire for you if you want to use it. We're bringing our energizers with us, but if you want any of that. And they were like, okay. I was like, oh.
Yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Now we know how she's keeping those kids in line.
Yeah, I'm sure it must be hard to see. I mean, I guess you're not physically seeing it every day at least, but to see the work that you put in to not be carried on by someone else. But I guess, everyone uses property in different ways and for different things. So we kind of talked about that with farming, but yeah, whether they just want to have space and have it look nice, then I guess that's their choice. But to see the work and the effort that you put in to not have someone else be able to take advantage of that would be challenging for sure.
And that was probably the hardest part of doing it. Like people said, well, why don't you just rent it out? Just take a year off or two of farming and just rent your pastures out. Well, our house was in the center of the farm, and I could not sit there and watch someone have their own animals out there and me not have any say in what was going on. Like that it wouldn't go well. And so we rotationally grazed animals for 6 years, and we were always the first ones out grazing before like any hay fields were cut or anything. And it was an old hay field when we bought it, so we put a lot of manure down. We put all the fencing in, we put automatic waters in. I mean, we put a lot of work into that. And we did drive out in the spring just to see. And I mean, it was before first cutting hay, and that pasture was taller than the fence. I mean, it was like 10 foot tall, easy. And we were like, oh my, holy crap, they should have mowed that a lot sooner. And yeah, so they ended up asking the neighbor to mow it for them, and it was all well. But I was like, holy cannoli, those pastures are huge. So I don't know.
Yeah, you can see the results of what you did though too. That the productivity and the health of the soil was there.
Right. And I think maybe they'll get some animals out there one day. I haven't been by in, I don't know, over a year now, but
yeah, that's right. So usually we end up asking our guests what their favorite thing about raising their kids on a farm is, but what is your favorite thing about raising kids on the road?
Yeah, so I saw that question and I was kind of like, how do I want to answer that? Because I think it's still the same as when we were on the farm. We try to be very hands off and give our kids a lot of independence. And I think actually by having that mindset already from being on the farm to being at a campground, most of the time, they are really confident in what they're doing. And I mean, I see the other kids come through these playgrounds, and then some of the parents look at us a little cross because Sydney, who's not even 2, will climb up the monkey bars and sit on the top. And we've got parents drive by and they're like, do you know she's up there? Yeah, she's doing great. she's awesome. And just the confidence that they have, and like, if you guys want to go play at the park, go play at the park. Like, we're right here. It's okay. You guys can go. So I don't think that there's really too much difference, but I like that we're instilling in them now that things don't have to be constant and consistent, and that it's okay to have, different types of days, and we don't have to be on a regimented, structured system. And also, if you want to go play at the park all day, you can do that. If you want to go on a hike and we can go look at a beautiful waterfall, we can go do that too. So I guess, other than our parenting style, my favorite part with what we're doing right now, this may come to an end, and I don't know when, and it will change again. But at least right now, we're able to spend so much time with our kids. And that has been our funnest part, that we don't have to leave them all day. And Lincoln went to a babysitter there for a little while because they did go back to the bank. And even when I came on the farm full time, I was like, hey, I want to do farm chores and get them done. I don't want him running around with me and like slowing me down, which now I'm like, oh, apparently the slowing down thing is supposed to happen. But he hated going to the babysitter. Like, he hated it. And it got to the point where the babysitter was like, I don't think this is working anymore. Like, he just screams all day long. So being able to spend so much time with them has been awesome. And I guess that kind of brings us back into the present moment thing too. Like, we're just going to sit here and be present and have fun while we're here,
What is the biggest parenting challenge with, I mean, I assume actually that the letting your kid be crazy and sit on top of the monkey bars is easier if you have a husband who's an EMT and can like
paramedic.
Yeah, paramedic is a little more prepared to deal with these things.
That's true.
But what's the hardest part?
Being away from family. That has been really hard. Paul's parents are retired. My parents are still working and are still raising children. They had me very young. And the fact that we're not able to see them as often as we were seeing them before. I mean, Paul's parents would get Lincoln and Sydney once a week, and then we'd have family dinner with Paul's brother and his kids. And then with my parents, they were in the same town that we were getting our raw milk from. So I'd stop and see them every week while we were getting raw milk, and sometimes, more than that. So that's been a really big adjustment and really hard for the kids. Lincoln asks often if he can go to Gigi's or if he can go to Granny and Papa's. And the 4th of July, this is part of the reason why we're going home in September, or going back to Indiana, but going back, the 4th of July we were kind of homesick. And I did not think that the 4th of July would make us so homesick. But the people behind our camper, they were having a party. And Lincoln said, well, I want to go. I want to go to a party. I said, well, buddy, we weren't invited. And he's like, what? But it's a party. And I like parties. I'm like, yeah, I know, honey. And so Paul and I are like holding back tears. Like, I don't know what to do for this kid. We don't have a party to go to. So we found a splash pad in Ithaca. That was the opening day, and we went to it. And then the next day we went to go do fireworks. So that's been really, really difficult. But, there's difficult parts in anything. So we try not to worry about it too much. Anytime that the kids want to call, we don't even say no. We just call them and see if they can answer. And we do a lot of FaceTime, lots of FaceTime. And we just try to keep it that. The grandparents also send lots of packages. So now, anytime we get a package in the mail, even if it's just Amazon for like, toothpaste or something, Lincoln thinks it's a present from someone to him. Like, why is it not for me?
Sweet new toothbrushes.
I love my kids do that, and they will open anything that shows up at our house now. Like, we're working on it, but they'll open it and it'll be like a tractor part for my husband, and our daughter will be like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Remember when I said it was for daddy?
I meant it.
That's why it's a fuel cap assembly. Sorry, kid."
Yeah. I guess you could help Dad put it on if you want and fix the tractor, but that doesn't seem as fun as a new toy.
All right, so we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
I did not know how to answer this question. I actually sent it to Paul because I was like, I don't even know what this would be. Like, I'm talkative. I don't know. I do tease that I am trying to make a living now out of something that everybody told me to stop doing when I was a kid, and that's talking.
It was on every report card.
It was.
Olivia needs to pay attention.
I always paid attention. I just always had something to say about it. And then teachers didn't always like that. And maybe I wasn't always very nice about it. Sometimes I probably had a little bit of an attitude. But one class in particular, Mr. Hamilton, always set me out in the hallway for morning announcements because I did not like announcements. But anyway.
And how much did you just sit out there and talk to everybody who walked by instead?
I had one teacher come by and she was like, "Do you need to be medicated?" What? No, I just like to talk and I have opinions.
And you need to hear them.
Yes, you do. You should. But Paul said I should bring up cattle because I'm just kind of a born and raised cattle girl. And I did show for 10 years. I was a 10-year 4-H'er. And I did win Grand Champion Heifer 3 years in a row at my county fair. So guess I could throw that out there. Because I was like, he said cattle, and I was like, I don't think I would win. He goes, "That's it. I'm bringing all of your plaques and ribbons with us on the road." I was like, well.
I was going to ask, are they hanging somewhere in the RV?
There is kind of a lot of them.
They're still in Mom and Dad's house.
They're in Mom and Dad's house. I don't think they're... Actually, no. My mom cleaned out that closet. She gave it to me right before we moved, actually. And I was like, I don't know where I'm going to put this, Mom. So it's in a tote in a barn somewhere.
Right, with your husband's tools. Perfect.
With his broken bandsaw.
Yeah, that'll be the first things that come out when you decide to settle somewhere someday.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and move into our cussing and discussing segment. So if you're a listener and want to submit your cussing or discussing, you can go to our SpeakPipe or our email. The links for both of those are in the show notes. Katie, what are you cussing and discussing this week?
I feel a little bad about this, Olivia. YouTube. I am cussing YouTube. Also Facebook. Also the internet generally.
What about it?
I'm sure it was easier to keep spouses like mine on the straight and narrow of how things have always been done and to keep them from getting big ideas before there were influencers influencing them. I'm trying to cook supper last night. My husband comes up to me and goes, "Do we have any underwear?"
Be more specific.
Well,
whose?
Yes. For what? Why? He goes, "I need some cotton underwear." "Do we have any cotton underwear?" Why? He saw something, and I know he had sent this to me before, and I had just kind of blocked it out. But there's a whole trend, to put it loosely, I guess, of burying cotton underwear in your field to show how good your soil microbial action is, because they will eat the cotton, which...
Right, and yeah, how they break down, and yeah. It doesn't have to be underwear, Jim. It could be anything cotton, just for reference. Yeah.
Well, I suggested that we should collect underwear from several different people and see who's had the most germs left in them, because I figured that anything with more organic matter would break down faster. So...
There's some science.
I also wanted to know if we were going to photograph these underwear, because I don't really need my underwear shown to the world.
You probably need it before and after. So yeah, maybe pick someone else's.
Yeah. Anyway, YouTube. Also, God love Will Harris.
A lot of people do.
But Will Harris is our family talks about Will Harris the way other families talk about Jesus. Seriously. Will Harris, Gabe Brown, I don't know who the third person in that Holy Trinity is, but it's...
Joel Salatin.
Maybe. Some days.
I don't think I have anything today.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be kind of a lot. Anyway, Olivia, what do you have to cuss and discuss today?
Yeah, I'm going to keep those to myself today.
That is fair. You're allowed.
All right, Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
So, as Olivia mentioned, we're recording this in July. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, maybe in the fall. But all this talk of travel has me feeling like, itchy feet, like I want to go somewhere. And I was looking at the calendar the other day, as, I tend to do. I'm a not super regimented, but being a dairy farmer, like things have to happen on a schedule. And so I was looking ahead through the summer to be like, okay, we can, take a day, a weekend, maybe, a couple of nights somewhere. And I was looking at all of the things that are already in there and, cow shows and 4-H stuff and things that the kids have signed up for, which is great. I mean, I want, it's good that everyone's busy, but I was like, when do we actually get to go anywhere, further than 20 minutes from home, or, an hour from home that does not include cows? And I'm not exactly sure when that's going to happen. So I know that maybe I needed to block that out earlier, maybe would have been the thing, but I'm also trying to live in the moment. So I'm not exactly sure if we're going to get away more than, go to the lake someday, but I have it at least on my radar that that's a thing that I would like to do. So maybe that means that it'll actually happen. So stay tuned for that. I don't know, just the busyness of life and farming, and the also that, same desire to want to go away, but you have to plan for it because it's hard to be spontaneous when you have livestock. I can't just pack them all up.
Put them in your camper. Take them with you.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you imagine if you just rolled up somewhere with, like, I don't know, how many semi-loads would it be to take all
I
your
don't
cows?
even know.
That would be impressive. It'd be like the circus coming to town, but it's just all Holsteins.
Yeah, pull into another farm and be like, all right, we're on vacation. You can milk these ladies for a few days. So thank you so much, Olivia, for joining us today. I loved hearing about your adventures and what your family is up to. Can you tell people where they can find you on YouTube so they can meet all the people that you're getting to meet?
Absolutely. So we are on Breaking New Roots. We're on YouTube as Breaking New Roots. We are also working on our Instagram, breaking_new_roots. We try to share a little bit of behind the scenes on our Instagram, what we're up to, maybe some of the farm expert excerpts that don't make it into the video. And that's about all. We have a Facebook too. Oh, we do have a Facebook group, Breaking New Roots group on Facebook. That's just for us to continue the conversation. We're working hard to be a little bit more active in it. But right now it's just a place for people to show off what they're doing, their farm, where they're at, and just kind of keep the conversation rolling.
That is great. Thank you so much for coming on today. And if you ever want to, expand and hit some provinces, you're always welcome to come visit me in Canada.
I know. We had so many farms to go see in Canada. So many people were like, come and see us. And we did not plan for our passports. And it was going to be like over $500 to get it done. And we were like, it's just not going to work on our budget right now. So
yes, it's an expensive added thing to put on to the budget for sure.
Yeah, which I learned in New York, they have like a dual driver's license, and they can just use their driver's license to go across the border. Had no idea that was a thing, but yeah, we still have an Indiana driver's license.
Yeah, not as easy, even harder than a library card.
Even harder than a library card. But thank you guys, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.